Hello everyone and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. My name is Giridhari. Do your words sometimes cause more harm than good? Well, this is a beautiful Bhagavad Gita verse we'll be looking at today, which goes directly to the point of what we should speak, how we should speak, regulating our speech, which is actually so important for so many reasons. So this is verse 15 from chapter 17 we'll be looking at. But before I get to it, let's talk about why this verse is there. What's the situation where we find this verse? Well, verse 17, chapter 17, is a chapter that's dedicated also to the topic of the gunas. In the Bhagavad Gita, there are 18 chapters, and 2.5 chapters, the 18th being the half, chapters, talk about the gunas, teaching us how to live a life in sattva guna, which is the best style of living, the best lifestyle you can achieve. Why is this? It's a very important point. Not a lot of people seem to understand. Yoga is very different. Even though yoga is a spiritual path, it's about connecting with God, yoga's connection, it's about becoming self-realized. What people don't understand is there's this huge difference between Western religiosity, the Abrahamic traditions, and the yogic path, in that in this yogic path, there's no, it isn't just a call for belief. In the West, you get a lot of that. Of course, not everybody does it different, but a lot of people just say, you just live your life as it is, your life is the same, and then just believe this. It's about believing and accepting. Do you believe? So it's about belief. And the idea is the life is, we're not going to talk about how you live. You eat whatever you want, drink, smoke, eat whatever, shower or don't shower, whatever, do whatever, and just believe. And that's enough for your salvation. But in yoga, it's not like that at all. For one thing, we're not like, the salvation. It's about getting your consciousness right. And then the statements, of course, there are statements, things you believe. There's Krishna, there is belief, there is faith, shraddha. Krishna uses the term. So there is this element of shraddha. You have to accept Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Krishna, and Krishna is God. So there's things you accept, fine. But the focus is on having a life, adjusting your life in such a way that you can then perceive these things. So the idea is you live a life in sattva, because that's going to change entirely your body, it's going to change your mind, it's going to change the way your brain works. This is stuff you could measure in a lab. A neuroscientist could detect the changes. The nutritionist, the doctor can detect the changes in your body. These are real changes you're making. In my last week's video, I talked about the satvic lifestyle that I've been practicing. And you get all this vitality, and your mind works differently, mental clarity. So I talked a lot about that. If you want to see, check it out. It's about, the 3 secrets of the life of yogi that really work. So, the secrets, not just 3, but the things in the yoga path that really work, which is the sattvic lifestyle. So as you develop this sattvic lifestyle, you change your consciousness, and then your conscious becomes an instrument that allows you to perceive the divine, allows you to perceive more subtle things and experience higher states of consciousness. So for that, you have to develop sattva. So this verse is Krishna's telling us what the practice of sattva, what you have to try to do, and what happens when you are in sattva in terms of speech. So let's take a look at it right now. So this is again chapter 17, verse 15. Anudvega-karaṁ vākyaṁ satyaṁ priya-hitaṁ chayad svādhyāyābhyasanaṁ caiva vanmaya tapa ucyate. Translation. Speaking words that are satya, always true, in a manner that is gentle and refined, as if all beings are priya, dear friends, and regularly reciting Vedic vidya. These are vanmaya tapasya, gradual perfection of oneself through speech. And this translation is from the book, The Bhagavad Gita Comes Alive by Jeffrey Armstrong. So, beautiful verse. So Krishna is saying, how should you speak? You should regulate your speech. Of course, yoga is about regulating everything. You regulate what you eat, sleep, how you behave, your consciousness. It's about controlling your mind. So that means controlling everything you do in life, right? So what are the things you should do with your speech which are going to help you refine your consciousness and also make your life much better and the world much better? I always think that this verse, if people could just practice one verse, and again, not a spiritual one, of course, not a surrender verse, but if people could just practice one verse of the Bhagavad Gita, maybe I would pick this one. Because can you just imagine the world we would have if everybody practiced just this one verse? So let's look at it again. So, anudvega-karaṁ vākyaṁ. So speaking words that are satyaṁ, true. So you have to speak the truth. Of course, the truth is a huge thing. It's a major pillar of Dharma. And we're all practicing Dharma in the path of yoga. So truthfulness is so important. Lack of truthfulness is very dangerous. It's very destructive. If you look at the world around you, and if you can just look around and see how much destruction and pain lack of satyam has caused. It's humongous. It's humongous amounts of suffering and pain on a government, society level, the lies, the government, the politicians, the corporations and their lies. And then in personal relationships, of course, extremely destructive to lie, to not speak the truth, to not be able to trust somebody else. It's horrific. It's horrific. So, justices, just everywhere. Think about the level of suffering and pain caused by lack of satyam. So, just that one thing, right, would make the world amazing. So, satyam, always true. But then, so let's say, you see a person and, oh, you're so fat. That's true. But then Krishna says, no, not just true, it has to be also priya. You have to treat people as your priya, as your dear friends. It has to be gentle, it has to be refined. So it has to be something that's kind. So it's the truth, but it doesn't mean you have to be mean, that you can offend people, throw things in their face. No, it has to be gentle and refined. Okay? Now, and also people say, another translation of this verse is that's necessary. So in a way did you really have to say that? Was it important to say that? So you say things that are necessary, truthful, and in a kind way. Can you imagine the world? I don't know. Let me know if you agree with me that the world would be amazing if people would speak like this, would they communicate like this. Okay. Then also, so aside from speaking in that way, truthfully, kindly, and in a way that's necessary and helpful, he says it should be hitam, beneficial, hitam. It should be, you can also speak, of course, svādhyāyābhyasanaṁ. You can practice svādhyāyā. So abhyas of svādhyāyā. Now svādhyāyā, if you've studied the Yoga Sutras, you're I've seen that word before. So yeah, that means your Vedic study. You see that in Patanjali telling us that yoga is the three things you do in yoga. And one of them is to practice svādhyāyā in verse 1 of chapter 2. And also the fourth niyama is svādhyāyā. So svādhyāyā is to study. And the idea was that you would study mantras. So you would chant mantras, just like we're chanting mantras here, we're speaking mantras. The regular chanting of mantras, the most ancient, the core, the Vedic practice, you still see to this day in the few cultures that are preserving the ancient ways of the Vedic path. The children would just recite verses from the Vedas, they just memorize huge chunks, of the Vedas, and they would just do that by reciting. So svādhyāyā, so the one thing you're speaking the mantras, the verses. So speaking words of wisdom, speaking Vedic vidya. as was translated here. So, very important, wonderful verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Again, this is a way for us, this is how, just in terms of speech, you'll be crafting a higher state of consciousness. You'll be crafting your state of sattva guna in your life, creating this higher functioning consciousness, because that's what you get with sattva guna, a higher function. You get a consciousness that works better, and this allows you to connect with the divine, understand and value the spiritual aspects of existence, which on a grosser level, and on the other side of the spectrum, which is tamas, the more bestial you get, the rougher, the heavier, the denser consciousness is, then it's just, it can only deal with the things right in front of you. They become like an animal. That's why, animals are in tamaguna. It's just like food, defend, attack. It's just like right here, and like that's why you don't see animals having philosophy classes and doing japa and praying to God, because consciousness is covered. It's in tamas. But unfortunately, it's not just in animals. Of course, we see that in the human species as well. So many people in tamas, and then they can't. That's why you're like, why aren't you interested in spiritual life? Why don't you want to make the world a better place? Because it's not even there. And then it gets so tamasic, you don't even feel the next person. It's like, you don't even care about anybody else. It's just like, it's just me. You just become an egocentric little monster, like animal beast, So we in yoga, we're going way far away from that. We want satya. We want truthfulness, we want sattva guna, we want a higher state of consciousness, we want compassion, we want dharma, we want tapas, we want all these things that are helping ourselves and everybody else. So let me know if this was clear, if you understood, and have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.